Hey folks, my name is Derrick Tung, owner of Paulie G's Logan Square and Paulie G's Wicker Park in Chicago.
And I'm Tony, the chef partner of both locations.
And today we are going to be showing you how we make a Neapolitan style pizza inside this amazing Breville Pizzaiolo oven. Ready to do this?
Let's get after it.
Let's do it. All right folks, we're going to start out and get our bowl ready, and we're going to start out by making our dough. We're going to pour our water in. Water comes down first, and mix in about half of the flour that we have prepared in the recipe. We're only going to mix in half at a time to really allow the flour to fully hydrate. All right, and once we got half in there, we're going to get in there and just get messy. We want to get that flour fully hydrated, and you can see that there's no more lumps. Then we're going to add another half of the flour back in. And this allows the dough to mix much more evenly and much more smoothly as we go. As you're mixing, make sure that you're scraping the sides, because what happens is that dough gets really sticky, and it's going to continue to want to stick on those edges and on the bottom. Take your hand and your fingertips and continue to push off on the sides. Mix it in as we go. And now that we're starting to turn it, you can see that it's getting a little bit shaggy, which is great. That's what we're looking for. The Neapolitan dough is not a super high hydration dough. Probably sits around 60 to 65% generally for hydration. So you can feel it. It's hitting a really good point. Now what we're going to do is add the rest of our flour. And with this last addition of flour, we're going to start folding it in a little bit more. And once we get most of that flour incorporated, we're going to give it a nice little rest. Say about 20 minutes to give it some time to auto-lease up a bit. And so as we're mixing, we're starting to form some of those gluten structures, which is how we get that nice rise in that dough when you start baking on the hot floor of that Breville. And once we've got that all incorporated and you're starting to get a little bit of flakes in there, we're going to let it rest for 20 minutes so that, again, the flour can fully hydrate and the auto-lease begins. All right, so now that it's rested for about 20 minutes and fully auto-leased, we're going to take our yeast and add that first. So we're just going to sprinkle that across the top. And what we want to do is incorporate that with a couple of stretch and folds. So we're just going to massage that into the dough and make sure it's spread out nice and even. Then after that, we're going to add some salt. Neapolitan dough is very simple. We have flour, water, yeast, salt, and then the last thing you need is time and temperature. And so with those 5 ingredients, you'll be able to really make a lot of different styles of dough out of your Neapolitan dough and get a lot of different effects out of it. And so now that you feel that the yeast is fully incorporated and you don't see any more in your bowl on the side, we're going to take the salt, sprinkle it across the top nice and evenly, and we'll get that incorporated as well. What we're looking for as we do this hand mix is you just want to make sure to scrape all the edges and get as much of the flour, the yeast, and the salt that's left over and incorporate that into your dough, so that you got all your ingredients mixed in properly. And once you feel like a lot of it's been mixed out and your bowl is pretty clean, we're just going to do a couple stretch and folds. So you can press it out a little bit. We're just going to fold it over. And this is just going to start aligning the gluten structures, much like making bread, which will let you have a nice fluffy crust when it comes out in the oven. The batch that we're making today is a double batch. So you can cut this dough in half and weigh it down. Usually we shoot for about 260 to about 270 grams, and then you'll want to ball the doughs individually. So we've got a nice ball now. And let's just give it a quick cut and get half of it in. And what we'll do is we'll just pull on this ball across your countertop just to create some more surface area tension. And you'll see little by little as you pull, the outside edge will start to get nice and tight. And so that's how you know you've created a nice tight ball, and you give it lots of time to rest from there. So now after you create the ball, you can set it aside for 3 to 4 hours at room temperature to start fermenting and creating all that flavor. Or you can put it in the refrigerator and cold ferment for up to 5 days. So if you're planning that big pizza party with lots of people, definitely make your balls in advance, get them in the refrigerator, let them ferment, and you'll have a lot better flavor over time. All right, we're just about that point. You can see it's a nice smooth ball. We're going to let that rest until we're ready to use it. All right, folks, well, we've let the dough rest anywhere from 3 hours to maybe even 5 days in your fridge. It's really developed a lot of flavor. You can take a look at that dough and you're going to see there's a little bit of bubbling forming in there. And that's how you know that you really let that dough ferment just properly. We're going to have this bowl of flour. What we use at the restaurant is fine ground semolina flour. There are certain grains like semolina that just don't absorb into hydration as well. Semolina is perfect for this particular usage. And we're going to just kind of loosen up the dough real gently. Drop it right in there. And then we're going to give it a flip. Now that both sides are covered in semolina, we're ready to stretch. So we're going to put a little bit of semolina on the counter as well. You don't need a lot. First, we want to round out the dough a little bit, just so we can get an initial shape. And then what I like to do is first form the crust. We're going to form the crust all the way around. And what we're going to try to do is press the dough. I know we talk about stretching dough, but the actual technique is kind of pressing the dough out little by little. You can see I'm not going in there and just pulling the dough apart, because what happens then is you're going to end up pulling on the same spot the whole time. And so I'll go all the way around the crust, and then we're going to respect that crust and then go up the middle and continue to press the dough out. And we'll do that maybe 2 to 3 times until it gets to the size of about your hand. How I like to stretch is I'll put one hand right up against the edge of that crust that we just formed, with the idea that we don't want to crush that crust. The biggest mistake that people stretching dough for the first time make is that they end up crushing the crust with the bottom of their hand, right underneath the pinky. So if you're just really gentle there, we'll be able to stretch it. And you can see I'm using the right hand to guide and the left hand to pull. And we'll just turn it a little bit at a time until we get it to a nice size. And now that it's gotten close to about 9 to 10 inches, I'm gonna lay my fist down and I'm gonna pick it up with just my fingertips, being careful with the nails, and just drape it right over your fist. And then focus on the sides of the dough, because the middle will naturally stretch out through gravity. And what we're looking for is you wanna be able to see some of that light passing through the dough, but you don't want too much. All right, and that is looking pretty good. What we're gonna shoot for is probably just around 10 inches right here. And you can always stretch the dough a little bit more after you put it on your peel and get ready to launch. But you can see we've got a nice edge all the way around. We've got some bubbles on the edge. And that happens because we slowly pressed out the dough, bubbles in the dough. And the next step is to get ready to top up your pizza before we launch it. All right, our dough is all stretched out, and I realized we still gotta switch this out of hack mode into regular setting mode. So what we're gonna do now is just take off that magnet, which is the handy guide for hack mode, turn off the oven completely, and then just turn it right back on. We're gonna set it all the way to this handy dandy style selector called wood fired. And then we'll make sure the darkness is right in the middle. The best thing about this Breville is really there's a whole bunch of styles that you can pick from, and it has presettings for all of them if you don't want to worry about hack mode. So now that we're all set with that and you heard that it's beeping, the light is at temp, we're ready to go. All right, now that we're all stretched out, we're gonna bring Tony in and get this pizza topped and launched. Are you ready, Tony?
Oh yeah, let's get
at
at it. So now what we're gonna do is take our pizza peel and we're gonna just sprinkle on a little bit of semolina. We're gonna make sure that our stretched out dough isn't sticking and that we can get it right onto our pizza peel. Just like that. So here we have some garlic, just sprinkling it on. And you can go heavy, you can go light. It's totally up to you. And then we have our fresh mozzarella.
So we grind our fresh mozzarella in-house because we find that it's easier to apply and it melts more evenly. If you're buying fresh mozzarella at the grocery store, it's probably gonna be whole mozz, whole logs, and you can just slice it and put it down and put it in the chunks that you want.
Next is gonna be our cup and char pepperoni. We're gonna take that, kind of fill in most of the spaces. And next, some fresh basil leaves. Now at the shop we use whole basil leaves, and then all we do is take a little sprinkle of olive oil, put it over top. So when you put it in our 900-degree wood-fired oven, kind of just fries basically, just nice and crispy. So we're just gonna lay it out, make it look nice. And then we're gonna come in with our olive oil, and we're just gonna kind of touch every piece of this basil. Just a little dab, and this will keep it frying instead of getting too dark. And then right before we go into the pizza oven, give it a little stretch, make sure that we're not sticking to anything. And then if we are sticking to something, we're just gonna take a little dash of semolina, nice and light on there, and then we'll shake it again. Boom.
It's time for that shimmy and shake. So we're gonna set it right back in the oven, all the way back. And we're just gonna shimmy and shake that slowly out so that it sets right in the stone. Perfect launch. Perfect launch.
All right, so we let it start cooking about a minute in. We're gonna give it a rotation all the way around 180 degrees. Just a quick spin. Color's looking great, starting to blister. We're just gonna give it a spin, make sure that side gets the same browning. All right, we're looking ready to pull. Here we go, look at that. That's looking great. You always wanna take a peek at the bottom. Make sure you got some good color on there. We're gonna grab our rocker knife. This is something that we use at the shop. You don't need one of these. You could use a regular knife. It's totally fine. This just does it in one quick motion. Now for this one, we got some nice, spicy, zesty vodka sauce that we make in-house. And we're just gonna give it a quick swirl, make it look nice. And now we're gonna hit it with some pecorino romano. And that's the vaccaroni over at Paulie G's Logan Square.
It's got that fresh garlic, a little bit of mozzarella, some fried basil, and then that cup and char pepperoni. It's got all the flavors and colors and textures that you need for that perfect bite.
Just a fantastic balance. Let's try it out.
Let's give it a whirl. I'm gonna take the big piece.
Now we got the little guy.
Yeah. You got the little. Cheers.
Cheers.
Do it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.